Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game SO. Today we're continuing series on Nintendo's quest to basically make emulation near impossible for the normal person out there to enjoy. And I figured because today was a Nintendo Direct Day, why not poke the bear one more time, talk about what they've done since the last video and where I think this is all going, because I don't think any of this emulation fight is going to end anytime soon. If anything, I think it's going to heat up this summer and into fall and winter, because it seems like multiple parties are in the mix again. So we're going to take a look at what happened to Vimm's Lair, what is left behind, and what this all means. Because obviously we talked about in the past Vimm's Lair getting a metric crap ton of DMCA takedown requests from Nintendo, and now Capcom, Konami, the ESA, and Sega have apparently joined in as well. We also discussed the fact that most of this is being done via AI apparently in the background, and the ESA being involved makes perfect sense on that. And you'll see here when we talked about on June 6th, Nintendo, Sega, Lego, and the ESA went after certain games, and it's very interesting as to what games those were. We're going to try to parse out what I think is going on here and why you're seeing some games being removed and some games 100% being totally fine, because that is the odd part of all of this. The fact that some games are demarcated as a DMCA takedown request and other ones are perfectly fine. Like Crazy Taxi here from Sega, one of their most famous and synonymous games with both the Dreamcast and the Sega Naomi. You can play this today. You should own a real copy if you want to grab it from Vimm's, but it is available, and this is just one of those quintessential Sega franchises that we all know, love, and remember. But if you're the casual gamer, you probably actually have no idea what Crazy Taxi is. Remember, don't use your brain, use the average consumer who might be thinking about emulating things is concerned. Virtual On Oratorio Tangram, another awesome Sega game that I recently talked about, but if you take your average person in their mid-20s and you ask them what games that they think Sega made and what do they remember, Virtual On is probably not going to get mentioned by absolutely anybody. That's where I'm kind of going with this, to kind of form the thesis of what I think is happening. But if we take a look at something like Sonic Adventure or Sonic Shuffle here, obviously pretty much the world over, Sonic the Hedgehog is 100% known, and this was taken down at the request of Sega Corporation, obviously the parent company of Sonic the Hedgehog. It seems like they are going after franchises, those big mascot games that everyone knows, loves, and remembers, and this seemed to all come about around the time that Apple decided to allow emulation on iOS. And again, as I said in a previous video, this is not some benevolent gesture from Big Apple letting you play the games that you want to on your phone. This is kind of something that they have to do to get around some of the European lawsuits about the open platform. I'm not going to get too deep into that, it becomes an area of law that I am not as well versed in, but basically Apple is not doing this because they're your friend, they're doing it because they want to avoid problems in the European Union. And even Vimm himself said that when Delta Emulator was allowed on the iOS store and emulation in general, his site got hit with a ton more requests. So something like Paper Mario here, Mario obviously is a very popular mascot, there's no two ways around it. And again, I can't stress enough how big of a deal it is that emulation came to iOS devices. I know you and I have been emulating games for decades and will continue to do so, but your average user just found out about this, and again, there's 1.46 billion active iOS devices in the wild. That means these companies view this as 1.46 billion users that could take their games and do something with it. That is why you see something like Sonic Adventure taken down. Sonic is a mascot known the world over. If you travel halfway across the world and hold up a photo of Sonic the Hedgehog, odds are people are going to know who that is. So then why is Shenmue still available? That's just because, in my opinion, it's not as well known of a franchise to your average person out there who just wants to emulate a few games. Or take a look at Capcom, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Very famous fighting game, widely considered to be one of the best fighting games of all time, or Capcom vs. SNK. Still available once again, and this is just on the Dreamcast front. So now we're going to get into a little bit as to why I think this is actually happening. Clearly there seems to be some sort of AI algorithm going through for these companies and picking out games to send DMCA takedown requests for, and of course you can give the algorithm any information you want, and it seems to be going after these gigantic franchises: Sonic the Hedgehog, Mario, Castlevania, Mega Man, the things that a ton of people out there are going to recognize but something like Crazy Taxi, even though we know it's huge, remains available because, again, I just don't think your average 25-year-old person is going to know that Crazy Taxi even exists, and that's why I keep saying that we have to try to think outside of our own brain boxes and kind of pivot into what other people might be thinking, because across the board, if it's got the word Mario in it, it has been DMCA takedown requested from Vimm's Lair, and that is just because, again, it is a famous mascot. Because of the widely available emulation for most users today, it seems like 2024 is going to be the year in which these companies try to make it hard for your average person to actually acquire the assets necessary to emulate these games. Obviously, this is a game of whack-a-mole, and nobody at Nintendo or Sega or Capcom or the ESA think just by removing it from one site, it becomes impossible to actually experience. This is just inconveniencing the average person that says, hey, I heard I can emulate Super Nintendo on my phone, let me try that. They spend 5 minutes looking for something, just doesn't happen. Because I own the original copy of Super Mario USA and Super Mario Bros. 2, I should be able to play it any way I want to. That is still the law. And as far as whether or not I think any company is going to do a lawsuit against emulation, I don't think we are there yet, honestly. I think it's one of those things we're going to have to wait and see how this shakes out. Because foundationally, emulation is still legal currently, and I don't think any manufacturer of console hardware is going to go after the concept of emulation in a court of law with a clean case, because I still think it is a loser and they don't really want to pursue it. What they're going to do is make it difficult. You want to grab Castlevania from Vimm's Lair? You can't do it. You want to play Mega Man from Capcom? Again, you can't do it. Now, the ESA is a group that protects the game developers and the hardware manufacturers. They are not your friend. They're basically like human resource for the company. And if you think human resource is there for you, I have a thing to tell you. It is not in any way, shape, or form. It protects the company, and that's what the ESA is as well. So if you want to play Mega Man 3, you can't get it from Vimm's Lair, and I think we're going to continue to see this happen. I don't exactly 100% know what's going to happen next because it has been relatively quiet in the last week or so, but I think you're going to start seeing these requests go to other sites in which these games may still be available, and I think maybe somebody might go and start to look at archive.org, because I know book publishers right now are very mad at them. It's an incredible site that the internet depends on, but it's one of those things where I think that might be the next front of something like this. Because even on the GameCube side of things, Sonic is completely removed, and if you can't tell already, the thread through all of this is it seems like the biggest franchise from the biggest companies are being removed. But you can go right now and Star Fox 64 is totally fine, but Super Mario 64, again Mario, has been DMCA takedown requested. So this seems to kind of be the trend going on, and if it is AI, it's just looking for the obvious things, and I figured I'd throw up a very early preview of the Mr. FPGA Nintendo 64 core footage, because Nintendo right now seems to be functioning about as well as the first core that we ever saw Super Mario 64 run on. All jokes aside, this is disappointing, and I think it's still going to happen, but again, Star Fox on Super Nintendo, it is available. Now maybe again, that's because Rare has a stake in this, and maybe Nintendo can't just send a DMCA takedown request, or maybe because Star Fox really isn't one of the biggest franchises around, they just didn't put that search term in the AI algorithm. But of course, Super Mario World 100% removed, and anything involving Mario again is gone. Earthbound, one of the best RPGs on the Super Nintendo, but not a popular franchise that's currently in use, again available, as is Super Punch-Out, because we haven't seen a Punch-Out title since the Wii, and it's not something that Nintendo really hangs their hat on. But funny enough, in the Nintendo Direct announcement today, they did talk about an HD remaster of one of the Donkey Kong games from the Wii, and of course Donkey Kong, much more famous than Star Fox any day of the week. So what I think is going to happen is these companies are continuing to do this from site to site to make it very difficult and inconvenient for your average non-power emulation user to actually enjoy this, and if it's inconvenient enough, maybe they'll just go directly to the company and give them money once again. That's just my thought though. Leave any questions down below, but we're done. Bye bye.